right, let's talk about some sexual health issues this morning. Is it still a taboo to talk about sexual health issues, especially for people who consider themselves conservative, i.e., Christians? And I'm concerned about sexual issues because they are ravaging society, and a lot of people live off this dopamine. It's termed as the most powerful drug in the world. So, yeah, and with this, we are introducing into the conversation our guest. She comes through from an organization that she is a part of. I think they began this one as a family ministry, Abundant Living Wellness, Abundant Living Wellness, Miss Sharon Tiliza. Good morning, Sharon. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Are you well? Okay, I can see she's on too. There we go. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, how are you doing?
All right, thanks. And how are you?
Well, thank you.
Lovely one. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your.
And because this is a very heavy top yeah, I think it's a heavy topic, as I started out by saying. For a lot of people it's taboo. Maybe let's start off with your area of expertise and what makes you to be someone who is interested in having this conversation with me.
Um, so you basically introducing the word. Are you getting? Can you hear me properly?
It's not properly. I think we've got a lot of breakages that are happening. I'm noticing that it's breaking a lot. I'm not sure if we can try again.
Oh, okay. Now,
I hear you here and there. Arrebone, if it doesn't work, because I know that our network is generally problematic, then we'll try another way if it
oh,
doesn't work.
okay. Can I log off and log on?
Definitely, we can do
Okay.
that. Okay, I'll give you a moment. All right. So as Sharon tries to get on again, we are going to be speaking about this because it's a very important issue. I think if you have been listening to the show for years, you've noticed that from the conversations that we have had, and we've got a plethora of conversations about all sorts of topics. And some of them we have found really hectic, whether it's statistics, which I might not remember at the top of my head, about from different conditions that people have, sexual conditions to addictions, to even in the church. Even in the church, we've learned a lot about how communities, pastors all the way down, are struggling with all sorts of issues. So because of that, I think this is an important conversation to have. The one of the things that I'm sure you also notice is how the home tends to be dysfunctional. We don't have all the members of the family together, and that of course causes a lot of chaos. And I think it has really made even these issues more prominent. And so we want to try and address them and make sure that you're okay. Even issues that women have, the like fibroids, or men have the prostate issues. There's a lot. And so we want to talk about how to take care. I did not know, uh, some months ago, was it last year, we had a gynecologist who spoke to Zanele, and he was talking about the importance of what's this checkup that ladies go for? I think
Pap
it's the
smear.
pap smear. It's the pap smear. Ne? And I think he says you need to go for it regardless of, I think, sexual activity or something of the sort. So there's things that some of us don't know about. And that's why we have these platforms, because we learn over here. So Sharon, yes, you're about to share with us your work background.
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me, Millicent. I hope you can hear me now.
Perfectly
Perfect.
well, thank you.
Oh, perfect. So I'm a medical missionary, and I've been doing this work since 2011, 2012. And I think based on this subject particularly, over the years, I have met so many people who are sick regards sexually transmitted diseases. and we've worked really hard in helping them alleviate or reverse them. And yes, we've had a great success in that. But I found that educating people, God calls for all of us to educate. That saying, prevention is better than cure. When you know what you can do to prevent certain things that are so unnecessary, if you just followed the knowledge available, you'd be saved from so much. And so, yeah, I've been working with the sick over the past years. And what's so funny, when it comes to sexual issues, they not only affect us physically, Millicent, but
Mm.
the reason such a huge rise in mental illnesses, it's because of sexually related issues. And I'll share some of that.
Oh my
Mm.
word, I had no idea. Can we start right there? What is the connection between sexual? Okay, maybe before we go into it, let's talk about maybe definitions, right? When we speak about sexual health, what is the intention? What do we mean by that?
When we talk about sexual health, we are talking about how can I say it? For us as Christians, it is when we follow God's dictates in regards to how we should keep ourselves, in
Mhm.
regards to sexual matters. And as a result, we find true health. I just want to give a statistic that has actually came out. When they were doing studies about nations and their laws regarding sexuality. And what they found that over the years, the Jewish nation has been leading in terms of sexual health. In that, there's less, statistically, there's less people who get children outside of wedlock. There's less abortion. There's less homosexuality, and there's less violence, or may I say it, even within marriage, there's less violence in terms of, male and female relations. And it is because it's been found that they have been using the Bible to govern how they relate with one another in terms of gender and sexual relations. And as a result, that's why they are leading. Yes, of course, like any other nation, there are those who will not follow the rules. And so they do have those negative statistics in regards to those who are not following the rules. And so that's what it means to be sexually healthy. You use the biblical standards as a guide in your life, and you thus experience the positive benefits thereof. And what I want to say is that this has now been proven scientifically, because what I'm sharing with you, it's something that was actually done. It was a study that was done. I'll just tell you now the university.
Mm.
No, it's actually not a university. It was a doctor that actually did the study. I'll share his name just now when I remember it. Where he actually did the study on different communities, and they were trying to ascertain which communities seem to be more healthy sexually. And they found that there were three communities, and those three
Mm.
communities had really strict rules in regards to sexual purity and conduct. And when those rules were adhered to, people experienced more sexual health, more happiness, less violence, less rapes, less abortion, less, and all of the good stuff as God had intended. And so that
Wow.
is what I would say sexual health could be defined from a Christian point of view.
That's amazing. So the Jewish nation is leading in terms of sexual health. In that study, do you remember the other two groups of people that he compared them with?
He actually spoke about three groups, but he never mentioned the other two. I just had meant to find his article, so I find the two. But he spoke about the Jewish one because it was the most outstanding of the three, and then
Mm.
he linked it with the. And this, by the way, is a scientist who's not a Christian. He's just a doctor, a scientist, and he says he found these three groups, but the leading one was the Jewish one. So he just did
Mm.
not mention the two. But I'm sure if I find the article out, I'll get that. Maybe
Mm.
so you can add it on
Yeah.
the show of the show
Oh,
later
I'll
on.
talk about it. Definitely, I'll talk about it because I think that's very important. Very interesting statistics that came out from there, or rather, results, findings. So when we speak of sexual health, is it? I mean, there's Christians, there are Jews, they all come from the Abrahamic faith, but not necessarily exactly the same religion. Eh? So, would you say, and I mean, if they're not Christians, but they've got such beautiful statistics with regards to how they take care of themselves and their families. Does that mean sexual health is the same for everyone, or is it different for different groups of people, different faiths, and stuff like that?
Yes. Okay. So I just remembered his name. His name is Dr. Anwad, and he did this research via Cambridge University. So it's a very well-known institution. I will share the name of the study once I get the notes that I actually went through, so that the listeners can actually go through and find the article. So when you say, is it the same for everyone? So
Mm.
here's the deal, and this is what I think a lot of people don't understand. When God created the world, every inhabitant of the earth had to be governed by the laws that God put in place. And those laws governed our body, governed nature, governed the oceans, the stars, the seas, the planets. It's the same law that governs every area of our life. So whether you believe in that law or not, it does not nullify you. It does not nullify the fact that that law applies to you. If, for instance, this is the most simplest example I can give. Whether you believe in the law of gravity or not, the law of gravity for all humanity on planet Earth holds. If it goes up, it will come down. If you're jumping up from a high building, even as a Christian, and you say, I believe that I can fly, you will fall flat and die, because the law of gravity holds with all humanity. So even with the laws of sexual health, they govern all of humanity. And it's been found that even in cultures where, the Bible is not a background at all, but they have strict sexual purity laws ingrained in their culture, they've found that scientifically the people tend to be more healthier and happier than in cultures where sexual purity is not upheld. So
Mm.
the laws are applicable
All
to
of
everyone,
us.
whether Christian,
Yeah.
whether Abrahamic or whatever. The laws are for all humanity.
It sounds like we're gonna take the stance that the laws don't change, because if there are laws, and if they are God's laws, God doesn't change. So should see the laws are the same from the beginning of time, even in 2025. And I have to say that because our pop culture in particular, it's changed so much. It's, I don't know if you noticed this thing, Sharon, where the things that are more prominent always appear to be the ones that are not for the good of the person and of course the greater society, and then the things that are good, we hide them because, not that it's shameful, but you
Mhm.
look naive, you look like you're stupid for living
Yes.
a particular way compared to someone who is out there and very carefree. There's that. And I think that's why there's so much peer pressure. And young people start very, very early. Probably the
Yes.
first time, if it's not a mistake, it's a forced act. And you just continue living life because there's so much shame around that.
In fact, that's the sad part, Millicent, is that we've lost our identity, and when we do not know who we are and what we how we ought to live, then our lives are determined or dictated to by um, popular information, or
Yes.
what's happening around the world,
Mm.
and that often works against us. So just maybe to touch on the part where there's so much peer pressure. Statistics have shown. So this was a study done by the University of Utah, and you will note I'll speak a lot about studies because a lot of people like
Mm.
talking about sex as if it's something that's Christians, that's your take, that's your view, and so I'm not gonna talk a lot from a Christian standpoint only, but I'm gonna give you a lot of science. So the University of Utah has been doing a lot of studies on sex and its impact on mental health. And one of the things that they have found is that the most people who are not satisfied with life, maybe let me not start with the final conclusion. They found that children or people who were exposed to sex, whether in the right way, which is the PVI, which is PVI stands for penis vaginal intercourse, or whether it's the super stimuli method, whether it is the oral sex, anal sex, all of these different, styles that are introduced to us by Hollywood. What they have found is that when they studied these individuals, and they did this study and followed a substantial number, over 100,000 number of individuals over a
Wow.
number of years, they
Okay.
found that those who actually were exposed to sex at a young age, and so obviously that is premarital, whether via sexual abuse, an uncle, a family friend, a boy, or rape or whatever, they found that they tend to have more suicidal thoughts, and they are the ones who tend to attempt suicide. Um,
Mm.
they found that they struggle with their studies in school. They found that they later go on to be very promiscuous. So it may have started with them being sexually abused, but then they tend to go on, because now, that scripture that says, do not awaken love too early in the Bible. Their emotions or their sensitivity to sexual stimuli has been aroused by that rape or that sexual abuse. So now they crave it. So instead of focusing on their studies, they are just thinking about men and sex all the time. So at a young age, they tend to be more promiscuous. And the more promiscuous they become more susceptible to getting sexually transmitted diseases. Not only do they get sexually transmitted disease, but they also are prone to fall pregnant early. They are the ones who tend to have a bigger record of abortions if they do not keep the child, or they'll be the ones who are part of the statistics of teenage pregnancy. And what they found with these individuals is that as they grow older, they later get on to be dissatisfied with life. They don't have career goals, and they tend to be the ones that are heavily dependent on the. And this is a study done in America, but they studied different communities around the world, and they found that they are the ones who tend to be more dependent on the social grants that are made available in nations as a result. So
Oh.
how, when and how you're introduced to sex
Mm.
determines life happiness. And the final deduction was found that they tend to have less life satisfaction. They
Mm.
just don't like being alive, and they just don't like life. And so it's a very serious thing that has really great implications in one's life.
Sure, definitely. 20 minutes to go before the top of the hour. We are speaking sexual health, and some of the information that's coming out is just blowing my mind. I'm shattered. I really am. +27734703520. That's a WhatsApp number. If you would like to make a contribution, as I speak to Sharon Kiliza, you may use that particular number over there. Oh man, this is very scary stuff that we are learning. So I like a lot of podcasts, and of course I like reading generally. And one of the things that I have heard a lot, I think I don't have numbers, but it's how people have been introduced to sex, because you mentioned that it's one of the things that contributes to later on in life your overall quality of life and other issues. And you are going to also touch the combination between that, the link between sex and mental health. So a lot of times I've seen people speaking about how they were introduced through either friends. It was not consensual, and they were not aware that this introduction was coming. It could be something like you are at a sleepover, a family sleepover, you visiting your cousin, Klambe, or something like that, and you might even all be girls, there's no boy there or whatever. And you probably like all the sound, usually the same age. If there's anyone older, it's 1 or 2 years or something like that. And the first introduction comes. It could come through the form of a touch. It could come through the form of a phone and certain pictures or videos being shown. It could come through also with us and the technology that we use. We have people who are able to, the way, what's this thing, hack, ne? And people we can send you messages. Your child innocent, phone handle fela, there's no issue. Next thing, a video comes through from a number. The child opens 5 seconds of an old man, in a very savory position. there was no consent whatsoever, and those are the kinds of issues that we have. So how does a person, or even if you're a parent perhaps, how do you prepare, because you don't know when the first encounter is going to be? It's usually not consensual. How do you prepare a child for that moment where they might be exposed and they're not ready to be exposed? Mute, please
I
unmute
had
them.
muted myself. Sorry, I muted myself and I had to move from where I was because I have a 2-year-old toddler and we are busy trying to keep him quiet and he's just not having it. So I'm just so that I can have some silence there. So do forgive me.
No, it's
All
okay.
right. True, you are so right, Millicent, that the first encounter often cannot be predicted. And I'm going to share, it's just that the time we have is not enough. But I'm going to share some of the things that have actually become very prominent. Um, the technological world we live in has made pornography and pedophiles to be pornography to be easily accessible. One, and pedophiles to easily have access to our children. That's two. And so the importance of understanding as a parent the role you have in your child's life to protect them is pivotal in the matters of sex. One of the other things that God has given as a guide in terms of how you raise your children, he says that the best place to raise children is not in the city, but it is in the country. And I share this passionately because when I was a young child, so my parents married and I was birthed, I grew up in Orlando East, Soweto. You know Soweto. You know how it's the biggest location ever. And at around the age of 9, my dad was a musician. And I share this openly because I know this is not an exclusive narrative. It is a story that almost all children have been exposed to. So at around the age of not even 9, Millicent, I don't remember the exact age, but around 7, 8, 9, my dad was a musician, and from time to time, some of the men he sang with, some would be coming from Kimberley, others would be coming from Cape. They would come over to our home, sleep over, so that they could practice. This was after my mom's and dad's divorce. So I would sometimes go visit my dad over the weekend, and he lived in Orlando East. And I remember there's this one particular one that used to come. I don't know if I should name or no, it's not. It's not. This is not about naming and shaming. But the man was a musician, and he would come and sleep over at my dad's place. And one of the things he used to love doing is he used to love kids, and I was a kid at the time. And he would put you on his lap. But while sitting on his lap, you would feel something poking you on your behind, like on your bum, because he really didn't like, he was a pedophile, basically. I got to understand that when I was older. And there was a time where he almost raped me, because when he would come visit, my dad would give him, there was a room that was a spare room where he would sleep in. And to get to that spare room, if I would be visiting my dad, I would sleep in another bedroom. To get to that spare room, I would have to cross the kitchen and get to the spare room. He used to like calling me early in the morning to bring him a glass of water, or for whatever reason, he would just call me early in the morning when there was not much activity in the house. I was still a baby, because we were taught to be obedient. I would go. And this one time, he called me and I went into the spare room, and he was in bed in the blanket. And he said, "It's very cold. Come in and lie down with Uncle," his name, with uncle whatever. These uncles who are not really uncles visiting our homes, and I know it sounds ridiculous. So I went in the bed with him, and he then started handling me in a way that he was not supposed to. And by God's grace, because it was uncomfortable to me, and because he knew everybody was in close proximity, it was uncomfortable to me. So I jumped out and I came out of the bed, and he could not continue what he was doing. But this is me at age 7, 8, or 9. I'm being handled by a man in a sexual way in my very own home. And what's that doing? What I spoke about, letting love being aroused at too young, too early. Had I been the timid child who did not stand up and run out of that room, I could have been raped that day. And I don't know how many other children where he would go visit, he did this or attempted this and was perhaps successful. So, in a country where these pedophiles are criminally charged, it helps to alleviate this. But you know what? One of the things that I learned is that, because of this sexual freedom that the world is now getting into, since the LGBTQT, whatever movement. Exactly. People have so many different sexual orientations and choices that pedophiles are no longer supposed to be called pedophiles. They are now named those who I wrote it down. Can I just read it? It says they actually prefer being called those who have a kind of, what do they call it? Minor attracted individuals. They want to be named as minor attracted individuals, making it sound clean while it is actually very dirty. And the statistic that when children are introduced to sex at a young age, they tend to be sexually promiscuous. They tend to be the ones who get sexually transmitted diseases. They tend to be suicidal. Not only having suicidal thoughts, they attempt suicide. They tend to have less life enjoyment. They tend not to have goals and ambitions. Why would we want to actually call them minor attracted individuals? They are just pedophiles. That's what they are. And so, yes, our children can be exposed to pedophiles. They can be exposed to pornography. And that is why, as a family, as my husband and myself, we decided that our children will not own smartphones until at least at the age of 18. And we're trying to follow the statistics of what has been shown that a child can now be responsible with a smartphone. Our 17-year-old has a smartphone. He got it last year, December. And it was because he was going away. So, he was going for a mission camp. And so we needed a way of communicating with him. But even now, he literally gets it 1 time a week, Saturday evening. And at that time, he knows I've got limited time to respond to all of my friends, and I'm not going to have this gadget for the rest of the week. He's 17. And a lot of people think that's extreme. It's what you were saying, that, there's these pressures. All my friends have their smartphones. All my friends can chat, and they are streaming. They are on Twitter. They are on Instagram. They're on Instagram only. On Instagram, when you're not careful and you just keep, you can see pornographic images there. TikTok, on all these social media platforms. So all of these things, it's been found scientifically that exposure to pornography leads to a sexual addiction, which is masturbation. And masturbation and pornography, they start that sexual path, which leads to a change in your brain. And this is the part that a lot of people don't understand. The reason why we have a greater sexual crimes is because of the change in the brain chemistry that is caused by exposure to pornography and caused by masturbation as well. And what's so sad is that our government is now mandating and encouraging that the young people in schools are taught to masturbate as a form of sexual purity. But masturbation actually changes the brain for the worse and can cause a lot of mental illnesses. That's the reason why there's an increase in depression, anxiety, and even insanity. The reason why there are more insane people, you see the reason why you see a lot of insane people walking around the street, it's because of masturbation. And this has been proven scientifically. So how, when the Bible says that sexual sin is bad, Millicent, but it says that of all the sins, when you sin sexually, that is fornication, it says that not only do you sin, but you sin against yourself. It is because sexual sins have a greater implication beyond just you enjoying at that time and getting that little level of dopamine. It will affect your effectiveness in life and can even lead to you being ineffective. When you are insane, what good are you, save, adding to the misery that we have in this world? So I know I'm touching on a lot of things and I'm throwing this a little bit off, but it's important that we understand that how we engage in sex and how we view sex, it has an impact on all areas of our life, whether we are Christian or not. And the reason why our societies and our communities are the way they are, it is one of the main reasons is because of how we view sex and how we've been taught to handle herself when it regards to in regards to sex. Yeah.
Yeah, ish. Yo,
So
you touched on a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm.
yes, sorry. Saying earlier exposure, you don't have control over all elements, but you can have somewhat a control. Expose your children less to media. Like we don't watch TV at home. Literally, we don't. We have a screen that we use from time to time when we want to watch a previously chosen documentary, and that's when they get exposed to the screen. But our TV is literally off. It can be off for a whole month. We don't. As I mentioned, they don't have. They did not get exposed to social media. Our daughter got her first cell phone at age 18. The son, as I mentioned, at age 17. So they were not exposed to. So they've not been exposed to pornography involuntarily. So because we've put the right markers, and then we chose to live in the country, because when you're in the city, Millicent, the billboards, all along the way, the billboards are just showing off sexual images. And not only that, now you don't even need the billboards. How people dress generally, there's just a lot of pornography while you're walking on the street. So it makes it very hard, but you need to educate your children. And the sad thing is that Hollywood is educating them with every movie, every show, every program, but we talk less about these things in our homes. And I talk openly with my kids about them because they need to understand why they are not exposed to media. And so it's important that as parents, we make sure we gatekeep our children in these little ways.
I know this is going to change the trajectory of our conversation as we had planned it, but given the experience that you shared, your personal experience, which brings tears to my eyes, because it's such a touchy subject, and a lot of us do relate, ne? I'm sure a lot. Not just I learned from a previous conversation with another guest that it's not just a lot of women who relate, even men, because they too have been molested and something has happened to them. A lot of them first sexual encounter was an older woman, for example. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, it's taking me back to my own life and different experiences. Some happened, some close calls, family, strangers, and you like, some, you were able to escape, others, unable to
Yeah.
escape. And it's so unfortunate, it's so unfair. Young
It,
Kwatisa, actually, it's really traumatic, it's very upsetting. Because I wanna compare your personal experience to now the raising of kids. When
yeah.
that man tried to do what he did to you, were you able to go and tell your parents about it?
In fact,
To the extent,
I've never shared that experience with my parents. I actually shared it with my husband, and in marriage, as we were studying on these matters. When I got married with my husband, what dictated to what our sex life should be was generally what we've seen on TV, literally on TV, because in the Black culture, parents don't talk to their children about sex. And so when we got married with my husband, so when you're asking, did you talk to your parents about it? I never did, because we never spoke about such things. My mom grew up, in a very, our parents back then, Milson, I don't even need to go there because I'm going to take time, generally in the Black community in the olden days, no sabui say we never spoke about these things. And so when I almost was raped by that man, I could not go to my mom or my dad to talk about it, because what was I going to say? The man almost did,
your friend,
what I
your
yes, what I do know is that from then onwards, I used to shy away from him. I didn't like him calling me. I didn't like him holding me. And my dad, it's so funny. Our Black parents are not even aware of these things, because here I was before I used to love this man, and then suddenly I don't want this man close to me. My dad couldn't pick it up. In fact, a Black parent would even think, why are you being so disrespectful? He's calling you. Go to him. But that should have said something to my dad, knowing my nature and being the respectful child that I was, to say, could there be something there? The fortunate thing is that I lived with my mom primarily. So from then onwards, I wasn't keen to visit my dad to sleep over. I'll tell my mom I'll go visit, but I don't like sleeping over. I don't like sleeping over at my dad's place. It was because of that experience.
Oh my God.
And when you say, when you look back in your, I'm just sharing this one experience, Millicent. There are so many others. There was a time where my mom got married and I had a stepdad. The stepdad also was a pedophile. I'll say that he was a pedophile. And how God protected me from all of these men where they tried but could not get to, where they literally get to having sexual intercourse with me. It's God's mercy, because I believe it was because of prayer. My mom was a very prayerful woman. So my stepdad also attempted touching me. But at that time, I was in my teens and I had learned now about, sex and, what's wrong and what's right. Though it was a narrative I had learned from TV, and I had learned from church that sex before marriage is sin, and so my stepdad at some point attempted touching me in a way that only a man who is married to a woman should touch a woman. Yo, Millicent, I screamed. My mom was not at home. I screamed. I said, "You dare touch me like that again? I'm going to tell my mother." I was 14, I think, at the age. I
Nice.
never did tell my mom, though. I never did tell my mom, and I regret that. I never did tell my mom. And there was a time where I came with my friend visiting my home, and my friend suddenly, she lived the following street, a few houses down. So I came with her to my home, and went to my bedroom to go get something. Then suddenly when I came out, my friend is no longer there. My stepdad is in the kitchen. So I asked, "Where's my friend?" And then he says, "She left." I run after her and I go to her and I ask her, "Why did you leave all of a sudden?" She says, "Your stepdad held my breasts." And I never told my mom. So, Millicent, when I tell you, and this is, none of them succeeded. Here's another instance. That's why I say in the cities, our children are exposed to so much more. And I speak from this firsthand because I'm not talking about I had and I saw. I'm talking about things that almost happened to me and some happened to me. There was a time where we were going home from school. So we used to go to school in Orlando West and we lived in Orlando East. To get to Orlando East, you had to pass through a railway track. And being children, there was that sense of adventure. So instead of passing through the bridge, some days we would pass over the tracks themselves because we wanted to have that thrill, that experience of passing where the trains actually pass. But in that area, there was a lot of bushes. And one day with my brother, when we were passing there, we met a man. And that man took out a knife and pointed it at us and said, "You take off your clothes. That is me." So he pointed the knife at my brother. "If you run or you scream, he said to me, if I refuse, he's going to stab my brother. And then he said to my brother, "If you run and you scream, I'm going to stab your sister." So we were there and here I was taking off my clothes. And in my heart, I was praying, "Lord, please protect us. Lord, protect us." And the man proceeded to actually come towards me because he was about to rape me. And I don't know what happened or what he had. Suddenly, when he was about to do the deed, he just jumped up and started running away. So when I say, Millicent, it was God's protection over me. There's been so many experiences in the city where I was almost raped. But what did this do to me? So though I wasn't raped, but there were many occasions where I was handled in a manner that I was not supposed to be handled as a child. And that started raising, what do you mean? Like sexual feelings, the desire to have a boyfriend so that you can be touched that similar way again and have that feeling, because when a man touches a woman, that's the thing. With a woman, we are stimulated by touch. So even though I rebuked all of those men, when a man touches a woman, those emotions or those feelings are aroused, and though you're uncomfortable because it is not consensual, you didn't ask for it, it's from a stepdad, but the emotions are aroused. And I was a very late, if I may say, a late bloomer. I never started dating until the age of 19, and I started dating at the age of 19 because there was that desire now to experience that feeling of being touched and of being loved and of being held that was awakened by all these pedophiles in my young age. So I shared this with my husband when we got married and when we started learning about God's way, because I remember one day saying to the Lord, to my husband, do you know I wish for us to study on sex? Because as I mentioned, we are both medical missionaries and we've been working a lot with people who get sick as well because of sexual impurities, and like you say, not all really started this path of being promiscuous and by choice. It is because of abuse, and now you have to work with years of abuse, and now this person is now by choice engaging in this sexual behavior because he's now used to the dopamine rise, he's now used to the stimulus, he's now addicted, he's a sexual addict. There's more
Mm.
sexual addict in the world than many would like to admit, you know. And so you're helping these people, you're busy giving them herbal remedies to reverse gonorrhea, because by the way, the antibiotics you get from the medical industry do not fully reverse gonorrhea. As you know, you cannot cure HIV and AIDS and gonorrhea and all of these things. It just helps to die it down a bit and then it comes back again. So it's only in the herbal world that you find herbs that really cure it. And so we've helped a lot of people truly reverse all of these sexual diseases using herbal remedies. And beyond that, then you say, but I need to help this person overcome the addiction, because if they
Mm.
don't overcome the addiction, they're gonna go back and do the same thing again. They're gonna contract the
Mm.
STD again. They're gonna get sick again, And so
Mm.
this is where I said to my husband, we need to study about this, and he too agreed, and we started studying a lot about it. We were studying science. Fortunately, we were also exposed to a man who teaches on this a lot, Dr. Neil Needley, and he's an Adventist. He's a
Mm.
doctor, and he teaches mainly on mental health, but he touches a lot, deeply so, on how sexuality and sexual impurity can affect your mental status. And so
Mhm.
he led us a lot of scientific data, and this is where we now knew how to search for the data, where we see the studies of University of Utah and Cambridge University and da 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 da.
Mhm.
And this is where we put two and two together. And this is where we also learned how Hollywood influences how people in marriage engage in sex. And that's part of the reason why there's so much infidelity in marriages, because we are following the Hollywood pattern, which stimulates sexual addictions that lead men and women to not be satisfied in their marriages, but they have to have extra sexual partners for them to actually feel like they're being satisfied. And that's part of the infidelity part. So when we talk to men and women who are married, we also touch on those subjects: that how often should you do it? How should you do it? How not to do it? Uh, why porn should be out of the house? Why masturbation should be totally out? And we even tell them about the sex fast that they need to go through for them to actually be restored back to normal mental health. Because when I said it changes your brain chemistry, Millicent, it changes how you get satisfied sexually, that your wife only will not satisfy you. And
Yeah.
and this is where you'll find husbands going outside. It's not that they are attracted to other women, but their brain chemistry has been so depleted, their frontal lobe has been so reduced that they no longer can tell the difference between right and wrong. And all they're ever thinking about is, I just want to have sex, I want to have sex, I want to just satisfy this urge. And so they can't help themselves but go outside, because what they're getting in their house is not enough to satisfy them. And so they have to go through a sex fast. And after they go through a sex fast, and there are rules that go along with the sex fast, this is where their frontal lobe is restored to normal and they are helped. And this is how we
Wow.
are helping people have victory over sexual impurities and sexual sin and sexual addiction and pornography and masturbation and so forth.
Wow, this was a lot. And I really want to bring you back. You mentioned something called a sex fast. I think we should have another. I don't know if these are seminars that you usually host in retreats, but wow, if possible, I would love to do something with you on these conversations. My time is way up, but I did get a message from a brother, Kenneth Ndaga, saying very powerful presentation, Sister Sharon. It really was a powerful presentations, very authentic, and you also opened up, and I know I'm crying, and I'm looking forward to having more of these conversations. I think this is how we also bring about healing. I think there's a lot to be spoken about. I'm finding so many similarities between your story and my story, and I'm looking forward to having conversations with you at a deeper level again. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation for today. I wish you a beautiful Sabbath, and I know we're going to speak soon again. It's definitely going to be a conversation with everyone who is listening, involved as well. So be blessed. May God bless you and your ministry, and may He protect you. May He protect His children. You're doing your best, and I hope they can be protected from the evils of this world as well. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much for inviting me, Millicent. Always a pleasure.
Amen. Amen and amen.
Adventist World Radio, SID Media. We are not general practitioners. We are specialists in Bible-based content.
My time is definitely up. Can I meet you tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock? We are going to be here. But for now, mid-morning empowerment coming through with Mazinhle Kambule. Apologies for the time. Let's do this again tomorrow. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of the day.
You are tuned into Mid-Morning Empowerment here on